Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time we are discussing, we're on our first January jaunt. I'm not super satisfied with the title, but, you know, it is what it is. We're talking about kind of slice of life stuff. That's why we went with a jaunt. So that's the idea. And I do like alliteration. This time we're talking about Game Meets World, which comes from Boy Meets World, which is a kind of school drama. So that's what we're going to actually focus on this time, is school drama in a game. So that type of thing. And we'll get into some examples as we go through. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get announcements out of the way. As you can see, it's just me and Dan this time. So I'll go first, and then Dan will go. And maybe we'll mix it up next time. Who knows? We'll go first next time. Maybe. Woo! Yeah. But as far as myself, I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads and The Gentle Voice, which is a channel that we have that I'm recently kind of reinvigorating, restarting, simply because it was already existing, for one, but also it's a ministry channel, so if you want to check that out, you can. For those of you that don't know, I am a Christian preacher, I guess is the best way to say what I am. And that is another channel over there if you want to check that out. This year, and this is kind of why I'm mentioning it, there's a joint thing going on where I'm not sure if it's going to come out in January. We're recording in December, so I'm not sure if it's going to come out in January. But on this channel, and then I may mirror it or do something along with that later in the year to release it on on the Gentle Voice channel, is going to be a discussion that we did when I was up there with Dan about how faith has influenced how your faith has influenced your gaming and how your gaming has influenced your faith. And there's 4 chats to go in those discussions because of 2 different recording sessions. So you'll be able to check that out, and hopefully it will be a really edifying thing for whether you're a Christian or not, gamer, doesn't matter, that type of stuff. So that'll be the idea. That's my main announcement for this time. Hopefully you can check out either here at the Inn of Planar Crossroads or at the Gentle Voice. And that's what I have. So that's what I'm going to focus on for this January jaunt announcements. So that leaves Dan.
Hey everybody, Dan from Avenue Studios. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. And of course, while we're doing these theme collaborations with the Planar Crossroads, we are doing Force Forge, where we build a one-shot based off of these discussions, and then we play it at the end of the month with our supporters. So it's a lot of fun. We just did Neolithic November as of recording this, so Dark December is coming up. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea what will happen with January Jaunt, but it's going to be great. Definitely check out Neolithic November. That game was a blast. Lots of cavemen. So, and then of course
almost dies. Maybe he does die. You don't know. You must watch. You watch. You find out.
Yes. It's so good. And I think as of when this will come out, we will have officially announced that we are launching a West March Kingmaker game on our Discord for our supporters. So check out the intros on that. Jacob and I are going to do a Druid's Table on that, but it's going to be amazing. We're running through the Pathfinder Kingmaker game in Foundry because it is now in 2nd edition for Pathfinder and fully integrated with Foundry. And it's going to be a blast, a mixture of play-by-post and actual games. So if you're interested and you want to support us, it's going to be an awesome ride. So that'll be going for a couple of years, hopefully. And that's probably the biggest thing we have going on. Otherwise, join us on Rumble for our live shows, and everything else gets put on YouTube and podcast. So,
all right.
Thanks for having me here, Adam. This is going to be a cozy chat.
Yeah, should be fun. And it's a lot. I put January Jaunt right after Dark December for a reason, because it's supposed to be like a palate cleanser type of thing.
Little palate cleanser, yes.
All right. So that's the plan this time. Before we actually get into our chat, we still must continue our tradition and our namesake of Levi's Spotlight. It's December when we're recording, so everybody probably is a little busy with different things. So that may be why he's not here this time. But even if it's not, we will continue his namesake Levi's spotlight, and this time we are spotlighting. Here we go. Oh, drag it over. The Dungeon Minister. And I heard about this one. I think I saw one of his videos on my own, and then I had him shout it out also with DM Tales. So that was an additional idea of saying, hey, check this guy out. And he does some cool stuff. Let me see. Some of his most recent video. His most recent video is The Poisoned Well, Part 1, which is a recap, which he does several recaps of his family, of his games he's played in. I don't think he only does his family's home game. I think he has done others. So some of them are his family's home game, and some of them are just recaps of other games he's played. But those
the Poison Wells from a convention.
Ooh, there you go.
His Clericon, I think.
There you are. Speaking of which, eventually I think DM Tales is going to have his own little announcement. Hopefully he'll be able to make it on Around the Hearth sometime this year, 2024, when this comes out, to be able to announce that. But, and spotlight it and such like that. So hopefully that'll be the case. But even if it's not, we'll try and make a point to shout it out ourselves. So, I think that's everything now. We've done our announcements. We've done our spotlight. So that means it's time to pull up your chair, grab your preferred beverage, and join us around the hearth in this cool January as we discuss Game Meets World. All right, skål.
Skål.
Okay. So, I think some people got intimidated by this one.
Yeah, I do too.
So, Scrat said he wasn't coming because he didn't have anything to add. And I was like, Scrat, I said in my head, Scrat, every time you say that and every time you add something. So,
that's true.
To be fair to him, he probably might have had some things going on. So, I'm not giving him too much of a hard time. You know?
We just like our fluffy squirrel with us, that's all.
Yes. So this time, let's go ahead and get some key points and things like that set up. And we're kind of going to break these apart. Since this is a slice of life type of month, I think it's good to break up the slice of life into mundane, absurd, and fantastical. And those three categories. And we'll do this each month, each chat in this month will do that, so people can kind of have an idea and see that it's not just about boring stuff. It's about things that happen in everyday life, wherever that life is. So we're focusing in on school drama this time. So there's things like the mundane ones you can have. You can have Boy Meets World is where this title came from. There's also Friday Night Lights and those other ones centered around that sports type of thing. There's university games. The Persona games the Persona games have life sim elements. So when you see those life sim elements in that school setting or in those dating games, you can do that. A lot of those dating games in Japan happen around the high school era of that person's life, because in Japan anyway, that's when a lot of their life, they have this good amount of freedom, but they also have they have enough freedom to do things, but they also have enough free time to do fun things. And, you know, life doesn't get all bound up in work, even though you can work earlier there, and you can here too some, but you can work earlier there. So there's that type of thing for mundane, balancing those things out, and something like a prom night or something like that, those work. For absurd, some examples might be Saturday morning cartoons like Recess. I thought that was a pretty fun one. Recess was one of my favorite cartoons on Saturday morning. So if you haven't checked that out, you young'uns, you can go check it out on YouTube, I'm sure. But it was all about how things happened during recess and how it happened to the kids and how they looked at it, and it was absurd in how things happened. So you can start to mix in a little absurdity without going full fantastical. Another one that did this is Fillmore, which was not... I haven't seen as many people talk about Fillmore, but Fillmore is actually a, quote, crime drama that happens in school. So it's a lot of fun to think about. It's a weird mixing of genre that seems to work because the kid is on... It's played straight like this cop drama with the kids, but the absurdity of it is the fun part, and they're on the, safety patrol at school, and they've got a chief, and they're having to deal with the principal, who's like the mayor in the crime drama, and then you've got the chief, who's the leader of the patrol, and stuff like that. And they use cocoa powder at one point to get somebody's fingerprint, and it's like, I mean, that actually would work, not particularly well, but you get all this fun stuff, and you can start to mix in this absurdity with it. It just sounds fun when you start talking about it. So there's Fillmore, Pepper Ann, for those that remember it. Who's that girl? What's her name? Is she cool? Is she lame? Oh, you're talking about what's her name? Pepper Ann, and so on. And that one delves more into the absurd because it starts to get into her imagined worlds and fantasy and what happens in her head. And the same thing with Doug. Doug is a great one.
Wow.
Because that blends a little bit of mundane and fantasy. Mundane and absurd. So Doug is really good. So those are mundane and absurd references. It's actually easy to find fantastical references because you have Little Witch Academia, you have the Harry Potter series, you have Buffy the Vampire Slayer for something in a modern setting. Those are all fantastical things happening in school, in a school drama, I should say. So those are fun. Those are interesting ways to take it, in my opinion, when you go playing around with them. So now we got open discussion. So did you think of anything, Dan, while we were listing off these different ways to do it, different examples?
Yeah, well, one of the other shows that is a little newer that I always enjoyed was Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, too, which could fit in this a bit. And it probably fits in the absurd, maybe fantastical, because you've got the imaginary friends, so you can kind of go a little crazy, but it's all through the eyes of the kids and this orphanage for imaginary friends. I always loved that show. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, that's a good example of how you have this kind of spectrum to go by. You have the really not fantastical at all, which is like Friday Night Lights, where it's about, school. It's about the team and stuff like that. There's not fantasy in it at all. Then you got Boy Meets World, where it comes a little bit, you're getting a little bit weird in some of the things that they're able to do in this school.
Right.
And then you go to Recess and Fillmore, where it's like, oh, so these are weird things happening in the school, but it's all fun because it happens at recess or stuff like that. Until you eventually get to things like Buffy and Harry Potter and Little Witch Academia, where there's crazy stuff happening, but it's still happening in the school setting.
Right.
So,
so that's an interesting thing, because we were talking about it before we started recording, I haven't run a game like this yet, so this is very much brainstorming and theory crafting for me, too, is going for the slice of life. How much do you want to go into like the Buffy Vampire Slayer? Is that the fun there maybe is the balance between you still have to get your normal life stuff done, almost like Power Rangers too, potentially.
Oh yeah.
You got to get your normal life done, but also, be the hero and no one can find out. So that's interesting, but putting that under a slice of life, but it would be under the fantastical. So I wasn't sure on the range yet. So that's an interesting thing to kind of play with.
Yeah, any teen superhero thing you see usually incorporates some kind of idea, some kind of life balance problem that young person is having to deal with. Now, I think you do start to lose some of that if you don't make those little things important.
Right.
So the idea with it being important for Power Rangers was one, it was a kid's show. But
yes.
The Power Rangers still had a real life to live. They were fighting to protect their real life. Mm-hmm. That's what made it worthwhile for them, was you're fighting all right, but you're fighting to protect these normal things that you get to have and do. And I think that can keep it kind of grounded if you do that. It's a lot easier to keep it grounded the less fantasy you have in it. If you just kind of verge into the absurd or something, that can be a lot of fun with that concept. I like Kids on Bikes as a system. Let's actually mention that. Because Kane mentioned systems. So before we continue, Kane mentioned things like Powered by the Apocalypse and Fate that are useful for non-combat situations. Yep. I would throw out Open Legend 2 because there's the challenge system in it. Fiasco is good for just telling stories if you want to just tell stories and award story dice. Kids on Bikes. That's the one I was about to mention. That's specifically centered around 80s style Kids on Bikes with kind of, I think it's centered more around a horror type of story, but you could tweak it.
Sure.
Those, Kane mentioned a game like Wander Home. That's useful. There's another one that Scrap mentions all the time, but that's more applicable to our last two. So, I'll mention it in a minute. But those are useful tools. Those are the tools you can use to facilitate these stories that are within the everyday slice of life thing. And something like getting to school on time could be a challenge event for someone who's having to get to school in maybe it's a very, very rural setting, or you're in a different type of setting where there is a wandering monster that constantly gets in the way. Or it doesn't even have to be, the funny thing is, it doesn't even have to be a big dragon or something. This cow always sits in the road at this time, this big fat cow. And it's your cow, so you can't get rid of it, I mean, you can't, it's your dad's cow, so you can't get rid of it. But you need it moved to get down. So you either have to leave before the cow gets there, or it presents a stumbling block that you have to then move the cow, and then maybe you'll be late for school. And if you're late for school, that's a demerit or something like that. And you're trying to reach this certain thing that you're going for in this rural setting. Going to a better school or something like that as you get older. And so those small life goals are really good for that.
I was also thinking, again, this is theory crafting, so I'd be curious if anyone, comment below if you've done this before. Send some of these. There's that other deal, a lot of kids shows will do this, where you see how the kid sees it in their imagination. Just like you're saying, like, yeah, in reality, this is a cow obstructing your path, but the way the kid sees it is maybe scaling a mountain or fighting a monster. So you get to have a little bit of that, but you can play, you and the players can play with how does your child character imagine this is happening? What's it look like? Again, I'm not sure exactly how that would play out at the table, but it's intriguing to me right now as we're talking about this.
Well, I actually think a storytelling method to look at on how to do something like that is something I almost did, which is playing as babies or toddlers and stuff like that.
Yep. Okay.
Rugrats.
Oh my gosh.
Rugrats did that. And you start off with this premise, and this is happening. And so the kids in Rugrats have to get out of the pen and go over there and do this thing. But as it plays out when they actually do it, suddenly there's this shift, and maybe that's Tommy's in his his hat and trench coat, and he's got to pick the lock with his screwdriver or something that he does
Yes.
to get out of the pin and stuff like that. And so it becomes film noir, like a parody of Casablanca or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a fun thing to do. And it leans into the absurd, but what you're doing is the absurd that's there is only in the mind of the child, or in this case, the mind of, this would work really good for kindergartners, first graders, second graders. Once you get into like third or fourth grade, kids are starting to leave behind some of that silliness and actually be concerned about some things that are going on.
Right.
So those kindergartners and first graders are really good. 5-6-year-olds, they're really good with actually having this imagined thing that's happening. It's just huge. And like you said, maybe they climb over it, but to them it happens over this big challenge. It was this huge challenge, when really, if they were just thinking about it logically, they could have walked around the bull.
Right.
But the kids don't think that way. They're like, oh, we got to be on the road and get over it. And so they think about these absurd ways to do it, and it'll let you play in both if you want to. So that's a way to do it for that. Keeping it more towards the school idea, these grades might be important because you can have actual real world goals. If you're wanting to keep it more in the mundane, you can have real world goals that this particular kid wants. And these type of games allow you to play out a backstory for a character. That's an option too. Mm-hmm. In a medieval setting, it's hard to say that they would do that you would have a school drama outside of a city. So it would have to be in the city. But any other time periods outside of, ancient or something like, well, you could do it in the ancient if you were in Rome or Greece, one of those large metropolises, you could do this. But in pretty much any other where there's a developed society, like in the West, first or second world countries, you could do it with that. And these are real world scheduling of events and functions and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to get your kids to start thinking about those type of things, throw them in a game where they're in magic college, like Harry Potter or something. And if you throw them into magic college, you have to say, okay, kids, what courses do you want your wizard to take? And all of a sudden, now the kid is learning scheduling. Now the kid is saying, well, you're having to tell the kid, well, you can't take that class because it happens at this time. So you got to pick between these two classes. And the kid is saying, but I want to learn this magic. And so they have to kind of figure it out. What do they want to do? Is there any kind of change they want to make? I mean, you can develop real skills if you want to. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I love that for actually playing with kids. Anytime you can turn it into a learning experience, that's fun.
Especially if they don't know about it.
Right. That's always nice. The other thing I was thinking about, too, is when you're talking about different settings, is that you could play in a different time period, and that would be the fun and the experience, making it very real to life, but maybe you're set in a period of time where you have to work in the mines, and there's lots of roles you can be doing and working within, especially if you have people who like to do creative anachronism and stuff like that. They really want to lean into the realism of the period you're setting your game in. That could be really fun if you enjoy researching those things and trying to then actually flesh it out and play that with all the interactions. Of course, my wife's been watching some of those romance shows set in like 1800s and stuff, Revolutionary War period and everything. Those could be some really fun periods to work in, or the Wild West too would be a good one, just going to trying to survive out there. And it's just the daily routine, but it would be far enough removed from our first world current day experience that it could very much feel fantastical.
That's true. There's that her interest in the romance does lead to the understanding that teenagers, if you're in high school or even in college or something like that, and you're not playing kids. I mean, I liked girls when I was a kid, but that's beside the point.
Me too.
So,
we're not saying they necessarily liked us, but
yeah,
we were fond.
So the idea of getting a date, like,
right,
a lot of people, especially the further back in history you go, they found mates kind of early in school.
Mm-hmm.
You go back 50 years from today, people, well, even today, people find high school sweethearts. But high school sweethearts were more successful and more apt to become your mate for life in previous generations.
Mm-hmm.
You go back 100 years to 1923, all of a sudden you're in between, I think you're in between World War I and II, or you're right in it. And so you have that tech level of stuff.
Yeah.
You really are finding a mate in high school, usually. High school or college. And if you're playing in that age range, if your characters are in that age range, they're going to be thinking about that, especially the ladies. The female characters will be thinking about that very heavily and looking.
Right.
So there's that.
Even just from practical standpoint, because the farther back in time you go, there's a practical standpoint to it too. Mm-hmm. Who you're paired with could determine the rest of your life and your kids' lives potentially.
Mm. Well, I mean, it always does.
Well, yes.
Yes, I understand the idea.
Right.
So think about that. Romance is always on the table, ladies, if you want to do that. Have some players on board for that one, you know?
Yes.
But
yes. Well, I wanted to... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think people are kind of on board with that already if they're saying, let's do a high school drama.
Right.
So
right. I was thinking, I think it's within the same vein, actually. It's just dawning on me. I don't know why I didn't think about this until now, but our Nobles campaign that we're playing in 5th edition has a lot of it in there. We're mostly doing a drama. There's very little combat, and so it's definitely something you could do even with 5th edition. That's what we're playing in there. You're just a little looser with the rules, and you're looking at interpreting the abilities slightly differently, just starting to think outside the box. So I definitely think these definitely do better in some of the other systems we were talking about, Powered by the Apocalypse, Open Legends, they're more flexible systems. But you can, as long as you're relaxed with the rules, you can use 5th edition. We're having a ton of fun. It's much more roleplay heavy because we're looking at the interactions with the noble houses, and there's the courting. I mean, we're kind of doing a slice of life in a medieval fantasy setting. So there's all that extra on there, but the focus is on the interpersonal relationships and where the houses go, our noble house is going, our family members, how our actions, just interacting with different people, how that affects other people around us. And it's been a blast. I love it. So.
Well, we're pretty close to time. I want to make I guess I'll make my final point, and we'll be a little bit looser with final points this time, since there's just two of us.
Sounds good.
So final points, plural, is an option. One point I have is, since this is focused more around school drama, make a set faculty. Make up a set faculty that your characters are going to interact with on a regular basis. This is important. You got to know, it doesn't matter if it's fantasy or reality or mundane, fantastical or mundane, you got to know whatever the principal's name was in Boy Meets World. I didn't actually watch it. I just took it for the title. So.
Yep. I can see him. I see the actor. But...
Yeah. I see the actor. But you got to know him. You got to hear him and expect him. And when you heard his voice off screen, you knew. Here he comes. Here comes the principal. Well,
Mr. Feeney.
Mr. Feeney, yes.
Got him.
So, he is a known character. He's an established character. In Recess, you had the teachers. You had the principal. You had the quirky hippie teacher. You had all of this stuff. You knew them and their tropes. In the same way, fantastical, you know Professor McGonagall. You know Dumbledore. You know Snape.
Yep.
So all of these faculty in and of themselves become a fixture of the setting. They are constants. People in school, especially kids, the younger you get in your characters are in their game, find fixtures necessary in their life. The consistency of those things are important to them for establishing ideas and concepts. And if we remember that in our games, having a set faculty that is this, this, and this. Because what was the thing in Harry Potter that showed that the Defense Against the Dark Arts position was cursed? No one stayed there longer than a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the curse of it. No one teaches there longer than a year. And that showed something in the setting. There was something different or odd about that, even in this fantastical setting. And so it allows you to play with norms and oddities, even in the fantastical. So have that set of characters and make those set of characters important to the everyday lives of the characters of the PCs. Make those NPCs important to the everyday lives of the PCs. So that's kind of my final thought.
Nice. I'll piggyback off that. Actually, as you were talking about that, I was thinking one thing practically that would be really great, either as part of a session 0 or even your first session, is building that with the players too, so that they have this. The players feel like they're a part of crafting this, and they can create those relationships. Because just like you were saying, that's one of the most important things here is the interpersonal relationships and knowing who's the cool kids, who are the losers, who are the goth kids or whatever. I know I'm dating myself with terms, but the scene, is it scene now or have we moved on from that? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's all about who got the Riz, right? Like, the Riz.
No Riz allowed. But that's a lot of fun. We did that for our Nobles campaign. We built our house and then the other houses and the interactions we want to have, and that really made us as players invested in it, so that we could feel that when we're playing our characters. So I think to build the school out with your players, and one that takes away some of the work for you as the GM, and then also it's an auto investment for the players as they enter in as their characters, because they know a lot about these fixtures in the school and how they feel about them. So it kind of lets you jump into the game pretty nice and quick there, I think. And it's a lot of fun to do that too. Like, it's a nice, easy kind of ease into a game, especially if you got new players. Like, you're not really rolling. Tonight, we're not really rolling. We're going to talk about what the school looks like, what the class schedules, going back to your thought on, learning how to schedule things out and everything. Doing that all together as a group is both fun and helps kind of share the load of work for building it.
Yep. And something that was fun with what Recess did, and the idea of houses, taking that idea of houses from your campaign of the Nobles of Waterdeep campaign. They're streaming on Rumble every Wednesday, so you can
yes, join the House of Chat.
Yeah, join House Horsey. Right now, we're trying to get who is it?
Oh, Drew.
Drew fixed up. We're trying to get Drew fixed up with one of the sisters, Nadine or
Winnie.
Or Winnie.
Because it's House Horsey.
Mm-hmm. So, but that sidetrack off there. Those houses that they made up, those aren't a lot different than what you see the cliques in Recess or clubs in Japanese life sims. What club are you a part of? So, going back to Recess, they had the Ashleys. All the girls that were named Ashley were part of the Ashleys.
I forgot about that.
And then the kindergartners were their own subgroup of savage kids that stayed in the kindergarten area. It was the absurd part of it was, of course, that they were fenced in and there was barbed wire or something like that on the top of the thing, like for kindergartners to keep them in. So all of those different fun, silly things can be in your school if you want to, if you're in the absurd. Mm-hmm. So using those as factions. You still have factions within your game. You still have different things to navigate. So, there you go. All of a sudden, you've got drama and conflict and, all that type of stuff.
Boom.
All right. Okay. Excuse me. I think we have come to about a good time. We should be pretty solidly on time this time, y'all. Because if we go over with me and just me and Dan, I better reassess how.
Then we know where the problem is.
Yeah. All right. So, I think that's everything. Do check out Avenue Studios. They're on Rumble and YouTube, streaming, excuse me, live onto Rumble every Wednesday. And then their live games are also there on certain Thursdays of the month. So check those out. As far as Avenue Studios, as far as In a Planar Crossroads, you can find us where you are now on YouTube or on Rumble. And we're also on BitChute if you want to check out there. Check out The Gentle Voice if you want to have some ministry type of information there. I'm open to understanding what people would like to see. So we can let me know. And I think that's everything. So, as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Man, I just can't find the titles to his short stories anywhere.
You just got to keep yourself a list there,
I know, yeah. I have them on audiobook. I'll have to look it up sometime.
Okie dokie. Alright, I guess I've got what I need jotted down. Oh, you got what you need? Do you have somebody you want to shout out?
I haven't been watching any small channels. I know Wes just interviewed the Dungeon Minister. He's about around the same.
Is he? I thought he would have had like 2,000 or 3,000 subs.
Did he? I thought when I went to his site, I was like, oh, he doesn't have as much stuff. But yeah, I don't have any small. I have no time to watch anything.
Yeah. No, you're right. He's not yet 2,000, so.
Okay.
We might do him. I'll just have it pulled up. Alright, maybe we'll push him over to 2. That'll be the goal.
That'd be fun, yeah.
Alright then. So we've got that and that set, and I guess we can start anytime.
Alright.
Okay, let me mute my phone.
Alright. Good call.